Hello everybody, welcome to the IEP LiveLearnLunch. This is our 60-second IEP LiveLearnLunch and we're really excited to have one of our fellows, David Imber from Good Employability Company, join us today for today's session. He's going to be looking at what we know about advice that works and looking at the worldwide evidence that we have and that underpins this. I'm not going to tell you too much about it because that's why we've got David here. And I'm going to pass over to David, who's going to take us through today's session. But before I do, I just wanted to remind you all to please pop any questions and thoughts in the chat. I will be here the whole time monitoring that and sharing your thoughts and your questions with David. And David will answer any questions that you have before the end of the session. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass over to David, who's going to take us through today's session. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much indeed, Helen. I'm just trying to, where does this thing work? There we go. Let's try this. Can everyone see that slide? Yes, I'm getting nods.
Yes, we can.
That's good enough for me. I'm absolutely amazed and flattered that you've all taken your lunch hour to come and listen and look at these ideas. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to share them, and thank you very much, Helen, for organising me and everybody else and making it nice for us, and thanks to the IEP as always for being our professional association. What I'm going to talk about is the evidence and the causes for good results in employment advice, and I'm going to ask you to pop into chat the answers to some simple questions relating to that as we go along. So get your typing fingers ready, and if we get too many questions, at the end there's an email address, and I tell you, since I work at home always, never mind with this dreadful bug that's going around, I'm always thrilled to get emails from people with questions. It really livens up my day, so we'll do that. How do I change this? I think Helen, how do I move this down? There, done. What works? First of all, I have personally read 317 research papers, documents, policies, and general waffle on employment services and related advice in the last few months. 189 of those seem to be important, relevant, and valuable. And the interesting thing here is, if you can see my little pointer, only about a third of them used any kind of scientific test. 2/3 of them are experts and academics, and they are expert and they are good academics, but that's what they are, chatting about it. and that makes our evidence rather less good than if we were lucky enough, say, to be doctors or nuclear physicists or something of that kind. So the evidence is there. Some of it is great, some of it's not so great, and there is a broad agreement amongst all the experts about what works. So let me begin at the end, as all bad novels should do. Begin at the end by showing you the chain of quality, and I'm gonna, this is a fairly complicated slide, but this will remain on every slide that follows so that we can see how the logic constructs it. On the left hand side, an organization with its leadership and management gets set up, and as a result of their activity they generate staff development, resources to do the job, and they build networks to provide the service or to get more resources. Those things inevitably and always feed into the personal advisor and the skills they use. And that is the cause of the client's capacity for choice and action. On the way, the advisor will develop good quality local labour market connections, and also they will adapt their work to the special social and cultural circumstances of the people that they're helping. So here, working down here in Devon, I might have a slightly different set of arrangements from if I was working, say, in Bolton or Edinburgh or Bahrain. So that's the map, and the arrows point in the direction of causality. Excuse me while I cough a little bit. They point in the direction of causality towards the client's capacity for choice and action. Notice I have not said the client's getting a job, because it's their capacity for choices that enables them then to choose to get a job and to go on and act on that choice. That's a really important part of this. Quality of the evidence. Well, how do we know all this? Well, staff development, advisors' skills, and clients' capacity for choice are the things which lead to better outcomes for clients. And the evidence for that is based on comparative, controlled, and scientific studies from around the world. There isn't a lot of it, but what there is very, very good quality. So in your typing boxes, in the chat box, questions if you're an advisor: do you get support or training to enhance your skills? What kind of stuff do you get from your organization? If you're one of the lucky people who's a manager of a service, how much capacity have you got for developing and training your frontline staff? So let's see in the chat. I wonder if I make the chat come up as well. I know Helen's watching it carefully. Those are your questions. How much capacity have you got, and what do you get?
Right, we're just giving everyone a moment to pop their questions into the chat box. While they do, Glenna has asked whether they're able to take pictures of the slides as they think it will be useful. Absolutely, but we also will be sharing it via the YouTube channel. So please do remember that you will be able to have access to the recordings after the session. So Chris has said, at Ingeus, we deliver constant sessions to keep our staff up to date with a number of various modules.
Great. So it's regular, it's modular, keeps you up to date with things. That's just the kind of thing which should be very useful in helping you build your skills. It's really good practice to be doing that all the time.
I can see people typing. Go, David. So we just need to give people a bit of time. The next one. So Glenna says, yes, we do at least 3 times a year. The next training is on race awareness, diversity and inclusion.
Great.
Andrea says, lots of ongoing CPD training, including mandatory staff training. And Maureen has said, encouraged to undertake any key training, external and internal.
Great.
Peter,
that's really good to hear.
Ensure staff make use of IEP levels 2 and 3 programs. Great answer there, Peter. Well,
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And Stephen says, Education Development Trust, we have 2.6 full-time equivalent trainers. We focus on quality of provision rather than just transmissive process training.
Yeah.
Catherine says, really great induction process, and have access to coaching as well as opportunity to talk to the wider team and ask for support and advice in terms of frontline rollout.
That's good. Coaching especially is useful, isn't it? If you've got someone you trust and who's expert and experienced, even just a colleague who helps through is very good.
Excellent. And Charlotte said that she's just started, but she's undertaken induction training and aware there's lots of extra as well. So it sounds like there's lots of opportunities out there.
Brilliant, brilliant. Do you know what? That's really good to hear, because I've been around for a number of decades, and I can tell you when we started out doing employment programs, I'm not going to tell you how many decades ago, we didn't even know about this stuff. It didn't happen. If we had successes, it was probably more luck than judgment. So it's great to hear all that. Let me go on then. to the next level of evidence. At the next level of evidence, we see that the expert opinion agrees and is sometimes supported that local labour market connections are really important. And I'd like to stress that word local. Is Terry's restaurant shut for decoration? Yes, it is. Has it opened at the end of the lockdown? No, it hasn't. Why not? Are they going to recruit? Have you visited Terry to see his restaurant? All of these sort of detailed things are really important. The adaptation to social circumstances is important, and there's a great deal of client feedback out there to say that when advisors listen to their clients more than they talk to them, and when they say, okay, if that's how you like it, that's how we'll do it, the clients really appreciate it, and it helps them helps them make their choices and move on towards work or whatever choice they have. The question of resources, it's difficult to generalize because there are so many different things under that heading, but adequate resources both in quality and quantity are necessary. And as an example of that, there's a very good piece of work from only, I think, a few years ago, which points out that a service can actually be successfully destroyed by the caseloads going so high that advisors cannot effectively use their interpersonal skills. On the other hand, there's very little evidence to say what a good caseload is. We've all got opinions. I know I have. I expect you all have too. But that's an example of why attention to resources is a really important part of this whole causal arrangement. And networks, there's good opinion about networks too, whether it is networks of people who combine to offer the service to the client, whether it's networks of resources like, say, housing or money advice, which enable clients to get an all-round and joined-up service. So, typing fingers at the ready, teams. If you're an advisor, how much time do you give to live local labour market and employer contacts? If you're a manager, how do you set about ensuring that your resources are the right ones to support your advisors?
Interesting question. So again, I'm just waiting to see what we get in the chat box. I can see people typing, so it'll be with us momentarily.
While you're typing,
people thinking as well, David, which is always a good sign.
Oh, steady on. While you're thinking or typing, feel free to take a bite of your sandwich. I hate the idea that you might be missing your lunch.
I'm really interested to see how much time people do manage to make at the moment around understanding that local labour market and employer contacts. Glenna says, I have to make time to do labour market information. And that's the challenge, isn't it, David? That making time and feeling that the return on investment is there in order to make that time a good return on investment.
Completely agree, Helen. Yes, it really is important. And the difficulty from managers is that they see their advisors swanning around the local town, chatting up employers. Meanwhile, there's a queue of clients waiting, and it doesn't look productive, but it is the thing that makes a difference.
So Tony has said it varies across organisations and roles, but my understanding is that more time could be given to labour market understanding. Yeah. I think we all agree with that, don't we? Andrea says, generally information shared at team meetings. He says, at EDT, we have an LMI team who provide us with a wealth of knowledge on our local areas. Donna says, we have an employment engagement team. I use every spare minute to research local labour market information and contact employers when a client is looking for a specific role.
It's all good. It's all good. You're all doing what needs to be done. I'll tell you what. Go on.
No, carry on. I'll read you a couple more comments after yours.
Just a little anecdote. I was doing a teaching session for some people on how to help migrants and refugees get into work. And we sent the whole class out into the local town to look for jobs. They were strangers to the town, and 2 of them came back with vacancies there and then.
Excellent.
So it does work.
Yeah, it does. So Catherine says, we support our manager to help with external contacts, and me and my fellow careers advisors also give presentations too, depending on who the audience is, and we share the work between us.
Nice. So very good to have the support for the management team going backwards as well as out towards the clients. That's great.
Chris says, finding time to attend networking events can be difficult, and actually, let's be honest, actually having networking events at the moment to attend is somewhat of a challenge with us working online.
Yes, it is.
So Maureen says, our offer is training to employers to improve their understanding of the conditions our clients live with. Right. This helps us to address the issues of them falling out of work.
Very interesting. And is that in the context of disability or some other issue?
That'd be interesting, Maureen, if you could pop that into chat for us, we can pick up on that at the moment. Yes, arthritis and MSK conditions.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Very interesting. I've worked in that field for a while myself, and it's quite right. Employers need quite a bit of help. Sometimes, oddly enough, sometimes they just need telling what to do next, and that's fine, but sometimes it's more complicated. Let me move on, shall I now? What's the evidence that leadership and management can make a difference? Well, the truth is, the evidence isn't all that good. There's an awful lot of chat. There are lots of different theories. I haven't yet seen any comparative trials or studies. And there's a lot of different opinions, but then that's all they are, is different opinions. So the point that I'd like to make is that good quality organization and leadership and management should depend on the quality of training and development, resources, networks, advisor skills, local labour market and adaptation, that suddenly the direction of causality is reversed. Quality, leadership and management does, sure, there's good and bad, but it doesn't have an overriding quality standard of its own. It should adopt the quality standards that flow from the other areas of service. So, question for you if you're an advisor, how do you give feedback about your own and your clients' experiences to your management? And if you're a manager, how do you use that feedback and involve the front line in your planning?
That's a really interesting question. I'm looking forward to seeing what responses we get to this around that feedback moving back towards the management. So Catherine says, we have daily catch-ups to share information and give updates throughout the day.
Good.
Be interesting to know, Catherine, at what level of managers attend those catch-ups. Interesting to know. I can see more typing going on as I look at all the screens. We've just had a couple more people join us as well, so welcome. Donna says, I speak to my manager on a daily basis to inform him about any updates. I also write up client case studies which can be used to promote our offer.
Great.
Excellent. And case studies are always so useful, aren't they, for other advisors to see what's working as well. Andrea says supervisory meetings every 6 weeks, team meetings, and from our employment support forum and phone manager directly as a way of feeding back information. Catherine says we have a weekly catch up with the wider team. Most days it is us and our line manager, but the lead manager for our London services attends once a week too. Chelsea says, obviously Chelsea's only been there 3 weeks as she's shared, but she's met with her line manager at the end of each week and communicate with her daily. So lots of communication there.
That's great, isn't it?
2 months we have a PDR where we can give our manager feedback and the young people give feedback also, and team meetings every 6 weeks.
Mm.
So
it seems like you're all doing the right things, and your leadership has no excuse for not knowing. If they have no excuse for not knowing what needs to be done next and how they can support you best.
Oh, here's an interesting one. Stephen says, slightly tangent, as EDT is a research-led charity, we are in the process of appointing a researcher who will be designated to the Careers and Employability Division. Mm. We will have qualitative and quantitative evidence of manager impact soon. Sounds
fantastic.
We'll
share it. Publish that.
Exactly.
Yeah, we all need to see that. We're going to come back to that theme of publishing and reviewing and gathering evidence later on. But that's really good to hear that that's happening. Let me move on. How's the time? 25 past. Yeah, let's move on. So those last few slides have told us about the quality of evidence and a few thoughts around that. Let's dig a little deeper and realize, before we dig deeper, actually, a critical point. I'd forgotten this slide was here, but I'm very glad it is. There is excellent evidence that some of our clients do well and some of them do not do well. And that doesn't mean it's a bad service. That means that they just, if you go to hospital, sometimes you have a bad side effect. You take a pill that doesn't suit you, it makes you feel bad. It doesn't mean it's a bad pill. So the question for you is, how do you identify who does best and who does worst, which is harder to do, to identify those, and what are the reasons? And if you're a manager, how do you assess the different outcomes which follow from your service and what the impact of the service is? So fingers on keyboards, while I say this is not about saying, oh, we got 1 million people into work last week. It's about saying we got 1 million people into work, but 100,000 of them are still not successful and they're going nowhere. So it's really about comparative thinking.
Challenging questions there, David.
Yeah, I'm good at questions. Don't stop me if you want an answer.
And I think that is one of the challenges, isn't it? It's being able to understand that when it doesn't work sometimes, that it's not the service, that it's the different factors, and how do we make sure we're identifying the factors and making changes where it's appropriate and not changing for the sake of changing because something's not worked for one or two people.
And you're absolutely right, Helen, and thank you for that's really good. And it's not always simple. It's not just that you've done the wrong thing. For example, there is evidence that people who are overconfident, or at least sufficiently confident to get work on their own, may have their confidence damaged by getting good advice. Ouch. On the other hand, the same evidence, the people who discovered it said, well, actually, it looks like that, but that might just be a statistical artifact. So we've got to be very careful what our conclusions are.
So that's interesting. So what you're saying then is the evidence suggests that if I was extremely confident, but I wasn't doing something right and my advisor maybe gave me some developmental feedback, then helping me be more successful in the next interview, it might knock my confidence.
It might well knock your confidence
in the right way. Okay.
Spot on, Helen. And we do know that there are ways of giving information feedback and developmental support that enhance confidence, and there are ways of doing it that don't enhance confidence. So it is, you're dead right, it's how you do it.
Okay. Really interesting. So thinking about that, you know, so really thinking about when we're given that developmental feedback, the positioning of it is going to be key.
Yeah.
Make sure that we're keeping all the positives that someone has and developing in the areas they have. That's really interesting.
Really, really right. Really spot on.
So
Shall I go to the next slide, or are people?
Jane has said that they use a benchmarking approach, a report of how the client or learner in some cases feels about various parameters at the start of a program and again at the end. So that distance travelled, that journey that they've taken and how that's impacted on them.
Very good. And if you're thinking about distance travelled, the Irish, the Southern Irish, that is, the Republic, have got some very, very good quality research into tools to measure distance travelled. If anyone's interested, I can send me an email at the end and I'll dig out the reference and you'll be able to find it.
Yes, please do, David. Send it through to me because I would like to look at that. I can forward it on to anyone who wants it, or I can forward them on to you. Donna says it's about having the experience to support clients to overcome their barriers, have good listening skills and understand your client's needs. The reasons why some clients do worse could be due to a lack of confidence, care and responsibilities, lack of skills and experience. It's our job to support clients to achieve their goals.
Spot on. Absolutely.
And then Tony and Anila and a couple of others have said, yes, please, to that research on distance travelled. I suspected several people would want that. Jane also wants it. So if you forward that to me, David, and I can share that would be fantastic.
It'll be a link to documents online, so you can just look them up for yourself. I don't know if they're copyrighted. I only use them for research. But right, moving on. We missed any more there?
Just lots of yes, pleases. I won't read them all.
Well, look, why don't we send you all 189 research papers? That'll keep.
No, we don't want that. That would be no. A few people are shaking their heads now. No,
no, I'm not going to do that again for a long time. I want first of all to focus in the middle of this slide on advisors' interpersonal skills. And here's an extremely short and totally inadequate, but evidence-based list of the kind of skills and activities that advisors should be using. And I'm not going to read it out because nothing's more boring than listening to someone read out what you can read for yourself. But I want to ask, if you're an advisor, can you give some examples of these activities and skills, or do you want to make an addition? And if you're a manager, how does your organization encourage these skills? And I mean exactly these skills. There are lots of other skills which are useful, they're peripheral and they're important, but these are necessary. Without this, it's very much harder to work with your clients.
Okay, so we'll give everyone time to respond to that. I know, and I know it's something we've spoken about at length before, David, is one of the areas that I've historically found a challenge is finding that time to really spend the time understanding the ideas around social, cultural and family influences when working with clients. It can be a challenge to put aside the time to actually look at researching community and understanding what's going on in the community around the customers that we've served. What you said earlier, it doesn't look sometimes to your line manager like you're doing anything particularly productive. If you're popping off to the local village hall to see what's happening there, but actually Tony's put yes, cultural competence. actually spending that time to understand the community that you're supporting and working with, and the representative can pay dividends in the long run, but it's really hard to measure, isn't it?
It is how much time you spend. This list, it's not comprehensive, but it is evidence-based. And I mean good, strong scientific evidence from lots of different fields, of which employment advice is only one. So if anyone thinks, hang on a bit, I don't think that's right, no, feel free to pop that in the chat as well.
So it'd be interesting to hear from Tony. Tony popped in there that yes, he thinks, I think his was an addition of cultural competence. It'd be interesting to find out more what Tony means by cultural competence. We've had another comment. Donna says networking skills, where you can provide an all-inclusive service in partnership with external stakeholders. So you can provide a holistic service to your clients. Maureen says understanding disability rights, awareness of the impact of arthritis on work, self-management skills to improve confidence of managing conditions within work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's a very good example of a very client-specific skill, knowledge and competence that you need to supplement these. And you wouldn't get very far unless you had that in your toolkit.
Exactly.
And if you've got any answers for me, I've got arthritis too, so I could do with a bit of help, please.
Oh, we'll put you in touch, David, with Maureen. Tony says it was in agreement with your point, Helen. Oh, thank you, Tony. And understanding the importance of family, social, cultural, religious, etc. implications for employment advice. It is so, it's key. And as I say, in the past, it's like that labour market. Spending time researching the labour market can feel like it's not a return on investment, but it's so key. Thanks, Tony.
Okay,
Back to you,
I'm going to move us on. I'm conscious of the time, well, slightly, but I'm going to move us on and expand another two parts of the causality. Questions for you. How well do cooperation and networking work for you? How well do your local labour market connections work? Or do you find it difficult? For managers, is all this a useful resource, or is it just another headache? You know, can we not get on with the job, please, and do without all this diversion from the work we have to do with clients?
Interesting. And again, while we're waiting for some responses, one of the things that I find quite interesting, and I don't know, David, if there's some research on this, but I suspect you will know, is around several people have mentioned already that they use employer engagement or LMI specialists within their organisations. But of course, that approach always means as an advisor, you're one step away from that labour market and the networking yourself. And I wonder if there's any research on whether that's a more effective way to do it because you've got someone who's focusing on employer engagement, or less effective because if I do my own employer engagement, I can place I understand my clients and I understand my employers as well. So there's no stepping stone or there's no drop in information. Is there any research around that?
I haven't seen any evidence at all that one or the other of those two ways of doing it is right. I do remember that I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s, the idea of a special LMI team came to the fore and various models have been tried. But you know, here is an area where it'd be quite possible for a service to do a randomized controlled trial of two different ways of working and come up with some evidence as to which works best.
Yeah.
All you need is two towns, one of which has got, I'm making this up as I go along, but two towns, one of them you use the LMI team model and the other one you use the advisors only model, and see what it looks like after a few months.
I feel like now like I want to try and do this, but I have enough on my plate at the moment. But I think it's really, really interesting. I wonder if companies have done it before. I'm sure they have and maybe not published.
Yeah. Okay.
approach.
Any,
So
any
we've
more
had some.
comments there, Helen? Because I want to move on.
Yeah, so Tony's put most programs ultimately focus on placing people into work and education. Knowledge of labour market, HR and business challenges is crucial. And the reality is the provider ecosystem is complex and siloed. Businesses struggle to engage with our market. I don't say stop ranting, Tony. I absolutely want the
rant on. No, it's
sorry.
nothing like a nice rant on a Wednesday. Come on.
Yeah,
I absolutely recognise all that. Now, the resources to make it possible. Again, I've said before, say it again any number of times, it's actually quite difficult to pin this down because it depends on your service model, your partnerships, your environment, the local labour market, and so on and so forth. But you do need the right knowledge. I think we had a really good example of that with arthritis before. You do need suitable caseloads, specialist skills and technical tools can help. Got to be in certain locations. You know, are you in the village hall, as someone said, or are you in the job centre? So questions here are, and it's 20 to 1, so I want to get your fingers moving. What helpful examples can you give of appropriate and useful resources that you use? Managers, you're responsible for providing a lot of those resources. How do you choose them? How do you know they're the right ones?
Excellent. So while people are typing, I will just let you know, David, that Emma has joined us and said, in Talent Match, many partners started with designated LMI teams, but found that placing own clients was more effective to meet demand and supply. So looked at by Googling Sheffield Hallam University Talent Match evaluations. That's an interesting one for everyone on the session to look at.
Very interesting. Yeah. Really. How valuable is that kind of discovery? That's just super, isn't it, to know that that's been done?
Yes, well, I know what I'll be Googling this afternoon. So thank you for sharing that. Donna said she finds it easier to match clients to job roles as she understands their needs better than the employment engagement team, when dealing with local employers. So and the team are really good or are better suited to bigger recruitment campaigns, or recruitment campaigns. Tony's put the link on for us for Talent Match, so thank you very much for that, Tony. And Helena said she's moving into an employer engagement role as they had no one to focus on this, but she now feels that stepping away from clients, and she might find it easier to place those she has worked with directly when she's in a coaching role. So that's sort of supporting that feeling we have around the advisors being involved in the process. Support.
So we are getting a feeling that it's that intimate knowledge of the employer and the client coming together in a single advisor that's part of the solution, aren't we? And that's my instinct about it, but I can't say it from research evidence.
Yeah, the challenge is there's just so many things that advisors need to do, isn't it? And how do we do all of that stuff, because there's only so much time in a day.
Yeah. And please don't say caseloads or I'll fall off the screen.
I didn't, and I shan't.
You never will. No. I'm going to move on because we don't have much time. Needed support from the organisation. So we've looked in a bit more detail, not much, but a bit more detail at some of the things which work. And the organisation needs to support all those things. And they need to include client and customer input into their thinking. They need quality standards. They need to develop their staff. They need to respond to the environment and get the right information, as well as doing routine things like keeping records. So the organisation has a role in underpinning the work of the advisor and the network and the labour market team, if you have one. Is this your organisation, or does it sound like a strange new world? And if you're a manager, yeah, we do that. This is the way to go. This is the future for us. Or, I'm sorry, we've just got so many pressures on right now that we don't have time for all of this. Fingers on keyboards.
I think all organisations are just so busy at the moment, aren't they? There's so much going on.
Yeah, and with the new programs rolling out and dealing with all the difficulties, and sure, it must be great if you've just won a big contract, but boy, is that a lot of work to put it in place.
Yeah, can be a challenge.
Yeah. Take that. I mean, if people are thinking about that and thinking, oh yeah, okay, what do we want to do there? Let's keep that as a sort of takeaway.
Yeah.
For this and move on. So that's needed support. Just to recap very quickly, got to have the right skills. These ones are evidence-based. Got to have the right connections. These ones have good professional support from all over the business and from academics and researchers. Got to have the right sort of resources, or else the other bits don't really work well. Got to have a quality and support focused organization. And leaders and managers should be supporting all of those previous items. So there's a list of some qualities, not all, just some qualities of leaders and managers. If you're an advisor, have a quick look, identify one that you think is the most important and tell us. And managers, hey, why don't you do the same? Which of that list do you value most for your success in meeting your goals?
That's a challenging question as well.
I don't very well. Don't ask easy questions.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's accommodating our ambiguity and uncertainty. And I think that sort of stands out a little bit at the moment for me, because we often get this in the sector, don't we? Whether we're ramping up or slowing down, there's often a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty across all levels of organisations. And it's a real challenge for people if they're going to perform and deliver the quality of service that they need to.
Yeah. Especially now, isn't it, with the economy in the state it's in and the services growing rapidly. It's very difficult.
And just life, there's a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty, just life as well. You know, when we log off for the day, there's that level of what's going to happen next. That's just another layer, isn't it, of challenge for us all.
Yeah. Only two things are certain: death and taxes.
Taxes, yeah. Tell me about it. Okay.
Are we getting anything there on the chat?
So we've got, I think Jane has I think all of those are intermingled, but I'll go for shared values and goals.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And Tony has to leave us because he's delivering some employer engagement training.
Oh, Tony,
I hate to see you go, Tony, but you can use some of this in your training. You can talk about it, hopefully.
Yeah. Great stuff.
On with encourage shared values and goals, accommodate ambiguity and uncertainty.
All right. Okay. Good. Interesting. My choice would be the 3 supports, but then I'm not managing a program. I'm reading research. But anyway, I'm going to move on because time's going by. And if I press the right button like that, so how do you remember earlier on we looked at the fact that some of our clients do well and some do badly, and there it is on the right hand side of your screen again. And we need to learn as we go along. This is not a static, okay, we just do the same thing day after day type service. This is a service that reacts to circumstances and to performance. I want to say the first thing that has to be done is to study your failures. And you need to ask, why was it that we did our very, very best, and in this instance, or these sorts of people, it just doesn't seem to work for them? You've got to study your successes and say, okay, this worked. Was it because of something we did, or were they going to get a job anyway? Really important questions. And in order to do that, you need to use objective measures, not just did they get a job, but what is the level of their competence, what is the level of their skills, such like. And you need, if you possibly can, it's not always easy, to use counterfactuals, that is to test people's performance against other groups. There are models in the literature, and I've run a few myself, in which you have one group getting one kind of service, another group getting another kind of service, and because of the differences, you're able to tell better what's working. Got to listen to your clients and your staff in the process, because they have the detailed information, and it is the detail, the devil and the angels are in the detail. And you need to get down into that. Then you need to do your review, and you use a suitable model of your service, its causes, its social impacts, its outcomes, its processes, and try again. But up in the top left is the consequence of this discussion. Right at the beginning, you need to set up testing systems and data gathering, or you can't, without those, you can't really do the study, the using measures, and the listening to clients and staff very well. So if the setup, testing, and data gathering is done early on, you can get a feedback loop. So question now, does anyone do this?
I can see some people nodding, David, some nods.
Right. Nods are good. I like nods. But no fingers on keyboards yet, I think.
Yes, it might take them a moment.
Right. And listen, I wouldn't be surprised if quite a few organizations find this something they do a bit of, but actually not very much, because it isn't straightforward. It does require a bit of effort, quite a lot of thought. You don't get it right first time. The organization can develop as a mature provider by doing this lots of times over. And even a little bit of this is better than none at all.
Again, time. I know we always say it, don't we? The time with all of the things that we've got to do, that taking time to sit and reflect on why, why something's worked in that instance or why it hasn't in that instance. Usually this can be a challenge.
Yeah. And I'll do my only sales pitch in this presentation, which is say this is one of the things that my company can help you do. We won't do it for you, because I think you should do it, but we can help you get it set up and tested and look at the results. So
Donna said she gathers feedbacks from clients on any training courses that are delivered. Right. This helps her to identify any improvements that need to be made.
Very good.
Emma has said Prince's Trust has My Journey form and tech survey, and then an annual youth index. Quality of data captured by staff. Do they understand why they have been told to capture, etc.? So do understand the why, not just the what. So must showcase results and learn to bring staff along with you.
Yeah. All good stuff, and again, as we've said before, the devil's in the detail, isn't it? That if you're getting feedback from clients, are you helping them give the feedback so you get what you need? Because they're not always expert at telling you what's what. Going to move on again. We're coming up for 8 minutes to 1, so. Now, who's ever been tempted to use technical tools, information technology, personality tests, matching, labour market job matching systems in their work. I think we all have. We've all been tempted by those. Glenna, I saw you put your hand up likewise. And the promise is that they're going to be efficient, replicable, reliable, shareable for all the resources the advisor needs, and they're going to be up to the minute and accessible and forward-looking for clients. What could possibly go wrong? Well, you don't need advisors. You can get the technical tools out, and believe me, there are services which do just get the technical tools out and apply them. And you can go online and there are people there who will tell you you can do this survey and get a job. So it does matter. Does it work? Well, the evidence is that combining humans with technology resources is often very helpful. That's fine, but only if humans are involved. Because look what happens if you automate the advice completely. So let's just take the human out of the middle of our cause diagram. Management get the promise of efficiency, consistency, predictability, accessibility, and uniformity, and they go, yeah, perfect, answer to a dream. That's what management wants. So they can do that with reduced staffing, easier access for clients, and efficient information transfer. Here are some of the tools which might be used, and they are all blind to the labour market, lack interpersonal skills, and are not adapted to cultural circumstances. If that's all you do, you limit your client's capacity for choice and action. The remedy is extensive usability testing and quality standards and human intervention. So a final question for you. I put this at the end because I like you to go away thinking, oh, he's a bit nasty, that man, isn't he? He doesn't like stuff. Question for you. Which IT and other technical tools work for you, and how do you know they work? How do you know that they benefit the client rather than improving your business processes, or both?
That's an interesting question. While they're typing their responses, David, we've sort of talked about this at the start of lockdown around the increase in the use of Zoom and platforms such as we're on today, that some people didn't want to use or were worried about using. It's had a massive difference, but we don't always think about the impact. You know, we're able to continue to offer support, but we don't always think about the impact from the other side.
Yeah, quite right. And
me and you have talked at length as well about.
They're absolutely outrageous. And job matching, I'll tell you, I did a job matching test the other day. It told me I should be a nursery nurse.
Oh, you'd be fantastic, David. I don't doubt you would.
God, I've had quite enough nappies in my life. Thank you very much.
Here's one for you. While people are typing, you've used the term personality tests. Now, I always thought we shouldn't use the word tests when we were linking it with personality, and we should say assessments.
Okay, I'd go with that.
Isn't there here that if the word test is in there, there's an inference that you could fail a test.
Good, very good point, Helen, and everyone should bear that in mind. There's me tripping myself up with my own too clever by halfness. Absolutely right. A single word out of place can make a difference.
Yeah, it can. And I'm just thinking, you know, we talk about it, and the assessments can be really helpful, can't they? But at the same time, sometimes how we talk about them and the language we use can.
The language is critically important to success. Yeah.
Switch people on and off. Sylvia says that very recent use of Zooms and Teams to deliver mentoring sessions. And that's interesting, Sylvia. If you're delivering the mentoring sessions that way, are you doing them within a group, or are you doing them sort of one-to-one and individually? Donna is saying internet to support client to source training jobs and support organisations. House database to manage caseloads.
Yeah.
Tools. I wonder if there's any different ITs or platforms. Donna says virtual platforms to deliver virtual courses.
Yeah.
And Sylvia's doing group work and further support one-to-one. So really there's that uptake on these platforms that we're using. If we can't be together in a room, at least we can be together in a virtual room.
And I'd say this great growth in Zoom and Teams and so forth is a really apt and sensible use of technology, because it involves humans and it doesn't cut you out of the loop. So great. Time is really, really tight now. So if there are no more, I just want to say, are there any more urgent points?
None at the moment, no.
I want to say thank you very much for giving up your lunch hour to listen to me waffling on. It's very kind of you, and gives me a great buzz. And thank you, big thank you to Helen, who makes it possible and hosts us in such a lovely way. Helen, thank you, and you know, big from us all. I really love getting emails and questions and comments, so don't be shy. If you brickbats, I can take them. And we've got on the 10th of June talking about risk, and we're doing good and doing harm in our services. And on the 7th of July, garbage in and garbage out. I've seen some pretty weird interventions in my nearly 40 years in this business. I'm going to ask the question, do they work? Which ones? On the 7th of July. So thank you all very, very much. I'm deeply appreciative of your support and joining us. Sign up to the next ones and to the other IEP lunch sessions, and we'll have more fun.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, David. I'm really looking forward to the garbage in and garbage out. I'm going to ask you in the meantime to share any of them ahead of time with me, because I just want to laugh and enjoy it on the day, because I could imagine that you've seen some really interesting things. And again, I think we started to touch upon taking risks and doing good, and thinking about sometimes when we're trying to help, do we actually harm? So again, that's going to be a really key one for us in about 3 weeks' time, I think it is. So thank you to everyone who's joined us today. I will be sharing this session via the YouTube channel, because there was lots of really good information on those slides that we want you to have. So do make sure, if you haven't already, pop over and subscribe, and that will mean whenever we record any sessions and pop them on there, you will be notified of them. As David said, we do have a session every Wednesday at the same time. So for those of you who haven't joined us before, please do come again. Next week, we're joined by Alice from Chronically Consulting, and in line with ME Awareness Week that's taken place, ME Awareness Month, that was this month of May, she's going to be delivering a session around understanding ME in work and job seeking. So it's going to be a really good session for helping people, or helping to develop more of an understanding of ME and some of the challenges that can cause for our customers on our caseloads. So lots of thank yous coming in, David, on the chat. I think people have really enjoyed today's session. A big thank you for me. Please do join us on next week's sessions. It's always wonderful to have you all here. And if you have any sessions you would like to see, and information you would like to get, especially those of you who are new to the sector that have joined us today, email me and let me know what you'd like to see on a Live Learn Lunch, and we will get it scheduled and get that support there for you. We'll bring an expert like David in, and they will answer any questions that you may have in that area.
And do that, because Helen's really good at making it happen.
Oh, thank you, David. So have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. I've lost the sunshine where I am, but not my smile, because I made it out there today. So hopefully those of you who had rain will have sunshine soon, and I'll look forward to seeing you all on a future session. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.